Watertown City Council Member gives a warning about the coming year's new budget. While reviewing sales tax and hydro revenue for the city, Monday night, Councilmember Ben Schoen points out those numbers are flat, not increasing. What is increasing? The cost of doing business. City expenses are on the rise. So as we get closer to the next city budget, Schoen says if revenues aren't increasing and costs are more, the city taxpayer will be ready to pay more.
I'm anticipating a fairly significant increase in property taxes. I don't have a number, but I'm saying I know how much our expenses have gone up over the last year, and with no additional income, that means it has to come from somewhere else.
The city's new budget starts July 1st. Look for a proposed budget with council holding budget workshops later this spring.